Welcome to This Explainer. I'm so glad you're joining us. Today, we're going on this really fascinating journey into the hidden mechanics of the human mind. We're going to use the eye-opening concepts from the text, States of Consciousness, to unpack exactly how your brain filters reality. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. You're at a massive, chaotic campus gathering back in, say, October 2026. There are dozens of competing voices just blending into this huge, indistinguishable wall of background noise. But then suddenly, across that packed room, someone speaks your exact name. Have you ever experienced that? Your brain instantly snaps into sharp focus. It captures that one specific stream of information amidst the absolute chaos. It's called the classic cocktail party effect, and it perfectly sets the stage for understanding just how dynamic and selective our attention really is. So here's our roadmap for today's psychological deep dive. First, we'll cover high versus low consciousness. Then we'll look at consciousness and cognitive bias, followed by hypnosis, science versus illusion. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with mastering your mental focus.
All right, let's start with our first layer of the mind, high versus low consciousness. To really ground our exploration today, we need to define our core term. Consciousness is the fundamental, first-person, subjective experience of the world, one's body, and one's private mental perspectives. Simply put, it's our unique personal awareness of both internal sensations and the external environment as we go about our daily lives.
Now think about this awesome analogy to contrast our states of awareness. Imagine low awareness is like drifting passively in a rubber raft. You're processing subliminal cues completely automatically, and there's basically no cognitive fatigue. It preserves your precious mental energy. But high awareness, that is a steered canoe. It demands intentional execution, deliberate mental effort, and selective focus for complex problems. It's literally the difference between just floating along wherever the current takes you and actively deciding exactly where you want to go.
And we can actually measure the impact of shifting into that steered canoe state. Take a look at data from an early 2026 study in the Journal of Higher Education News. They found that university students using automated biometric focus tracking apps saw a massive 40% increase in sustained high awareness during lectures. 40%. By providing real-time biometric feedback, these smart campus tools actively train students to transition from that distracted drifting right into engaged cognitive focus. This has been an absolute game changer for non-traditional adult learners trying to balance complex family obligations with their demanding coursework. The pioneer of psychology, William James, captured this fluidity beautifully. He wrote, "Consciousness, then, does not appear to itself chopped up in bits. A river or a stream are the metaphors by which it is most naturally described." And this brilliantly illustrates how awareness flows so seamlessly in our daily lives, constantly shifting back and forth between passive monitoring and active, high-alert focus. Let me pause for a second and ask you something. When you notice your own mind drifting during a really long lecture, how does that lack of focus actually affect your ability to balance school with your family obligations? Thinking critically about this really drives home the point that staying stuck in that passive rubber raft has very real consequences on our day-to-day productivity. Moving down into the next darker layer of our mental stream, we have consciousness and cognitive bias. To understand how automatic processing silently shapes our everyday interactions, we first need to define bias. Bias is a systematic prejudice, preference, or cognitive shortcut that alters objective judgment and decision-making outside of conscious intent. See, the brain is constantly looking for cognitive efficiency. It relies on these rapid, subconscious shortcuts to navigate a complex world. But the catch is, this leaves us highly vulnerable to priming effects and hidden stereotypes that operate completely under the radar. Let me give you a powerful example of this in action from an April 2026 trial of the implicit association test. Imagine sitting at a screen where images of diverse faces are flashing alongside positive and negative words, and you have to respond rapidly. What this test proved is that these subtle, automated associations totally bypass our high-level awareness entirely. They expose hidden preferences that influence our snap judgments, and they do it without asking for our active permission. The real-world implications here are huge. According to a March 2026 report in the Campus Democracy Review, institutions are fighting back by implementing mandatory bias awareness software. The goal is to evaluate applicant portfolios more equitably and shield diverse learners from unconscious favoritism. It really proves that deliberate mental effort, that high awareness we talked about, acts as an absolutely crucial checkpoint. It's a necessary, conscious intervention to override those automatic prejudices.
The famous psychoanalyst Carl Jung hit the nail on the head when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So the crucial point is that intentionally monitoring our reflexive reactions isn't just a good idea, it is absolutely essential if we want to cultivate fairer decision-making in our lives. I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever caught yourself making a split-second judgment about a classmate that completely clashed with your actual, explicitly stated personal values? It's kind of an unsettling reality to confront, right? But realizing that our explicit moral beliefs don't always control our automatic responses is the very first step to taking back control. Now we're diving into the deepest layer of the mind, hypnosis, science versus illusion. Let's strip away the theatrical illusions right out of the gate and define what this really means. Hypnosis is an altered state of consciousness characterized by deep relaxation, intense focus, and high responsiveness to external suggestions. This definition points us away from the magic shows and straight toward the authentic therapeutic practice of genuine hypnotherapy. We absolutely have to separate the sensationalized media version from actual clinical science. You know the trope? A Friday night, November 2026, a stage performer commanding volunteers to do ridiculous stunts, suggesting absolute subjugation of helpless subjects. Complete myth. In reality, clinical hypnotherapy is about collaborative suggestibility and acute environmental dissociation. The patient doesn't lose their autonomy. They maintain full moral control over their behaviors at all times. Hypnosis doesn't strip away your agency, it actually empowers your self-regulatory capabilities. The real-world clinical applications are amazing. Just look at a June 2026 report in the Collegiate Health Journal. University wellness clinics are adopting virtual reality hypnotherapy programs to provide non-pharmacological relief for severe examination anxiety. These structured relaxation sessions successfully help overloaded traditional and adult learners block out all that external stress. Sigmund Freud summed up this entire concept with a very famous analogy. He said, "The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water." That quote perfectly encapsulates our entire journey in this explainer today, going from the visible surface of focused attention all the way down into the deeply submerged depths of hidden bias and therapeutic trance. So, bringing this back to your world, would you ever try a clinical hypnosis session to help you handle your own school stress or test anxiety? Once you understand it as an induced state of highly focused relaxation rather than mind control, it becomes a way more practical, appealing tool, doesn't it? All right, let's pull all of this together in our final section, mastering your mental focus. Let's move to and see how this builds into an actionable, overarching solution. Step 1, recognize when you're drifting passively in that rubber raft of everyday low awareness. Step 2, intentionally activate the steered canoe of high awareness to correct those hidden implicit biases. And step 3, harness deep mental focus to alleviate chronic stress and anxiety. It's all about moving from everyday passive filtering to intentional, high consciousness and therapeutic focus. We've covered a ton of ground today, exploring these layers of the mind. So now that you understand the hidden currents of your consciousness, from the passive drifts to the submerged biases, are you ready to take the paddle and steer your own mind? Thanks so much for exploring this with me.